All right, it looks like we've got most of us here. So I wanted to welcome you guys, and I wanted to really thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us here. This is the first ever webinar in the new series of cybersecurity webinars that we will be launching. So yeah, welcome, and we hope you enjoy. Just some housekeeping issues before we start. The webinar will be recorded. It will only be the audio. So if you ask a question via the format online, it will not be recorded. We will also send a copy of the webinar out to anyone who has signed up and has joined us today. So you'll receive a copy of the deck and a copy of the recorded version of the webinar. So who are we? Well, I'm the Cybersecurity Program Manager. I joined Canary the last part of last year. We also have with us Lindsay MacDonald and Marie-Claude Belanger from the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. You're going to hear us call them CCCS most of the time, just because it's a lot shorter and a lot easier. So we're very excited to have them on board. I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of the cybersecurity program. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. A lot of you have probably already seen this information, but our real goal here is to really improve the overall way that we do this right across the nation. So we want to work with you guys out in the community. We want to help you with your posture, and we really want to not change anything that you're doing, but supplement what you're doing in ways that basically helps us to improve the overall cybersecurity posture right across the nation. We launched, or we've announced, the first 3 programs that we're offering. The first one that's actually been launched is the Sierra DNS. This is basically a blocking service that you can use. The next service that we're launching is the CANSOC threat feed service. This will launch in the next month or so. And there's also the IDS. Some of you may know of this program as the JSP, as we called it, but we're changing the name of it to the IDS. And that's looking to launch sometime around Q2 or Q3 of next year. For more information, you can always go online, or if you need information directly or have any questions, you can email cip@canary.ca, or you can talk to any of your NREN partners, and they should be able to supply you with more information. We will be asking you to fill out a brief survey when this is done. We would really appreciate if you would be able to take that time to do that. It helps us really, really understand what's really important to you, and it helps us be able to shape what services we're looking to offer in the future. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be greatly appreciated. We also will have a Q&A when this is all done. We will stay as long as we need to make sure everybody gets their questions to be answered. And if you, once again, if you have anything that doesn't necessarily get answered here or that comes up later, you can feel free to reach out to us. So I'd like to start by introducing you to Lindsay, and Lindsay works for the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, and she's going to do the bulk of the presentation for today. So take it away, Lindsay.
Thanks so much, Kevin. And hello, everybody. Thank you for having me today. I have to say it was a bit of gymnastics, jumping through some hoops to get connected today. I wasn't able to do it through my work computer or my work phone. So I am logged in from my personal phone today. So let's hope that the batteries don't run low. And of course I have kids running around behind me, so it's all good. But a pleasure to be with everybody here today. And thank you for taking the time to join us for the next 45 to 60 minutes. Really appreciate the opportunity from Canary to invite us here today to launch your new webinar series. So as Kevin mentioned, my name is Lindsay MacDonald. I'm the Cyber Center Partnership Lead for the academic sector. And I am joined on the line today by Marie Bélanger. She's my Senior Cybersecurity Analyst. And our role at the Cyber Center is to provide cybersecurity advice, guidance, and services to IT security professionals in the academic sector. So presumably everybody here that's on the line today. And because I am on my personal phone, I've got Marie who's displaying her slides, and I'll be very grateful to have her change them for me. So as I mentioned, we are really thrilled to be here today to take part in the inaugural session for the Canaries webinar cybersecurity series. Marie, could you go to the next slide? One of our goals from the Cyber Center this year for 2021 is to develop some greater partnerships with the higher education institutions, as well as provincial RANs and academic associations. So it's really a fantastic opportunity to brief you all today and to make our acquaintance. The way I'm going to go through the presentation is we'll spend the first little bit talking about what the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity is, what our mandates are. And then we'll go through and talk about some of the products and services that we have to offer as it relates to threat intelligence, cybersecurity posture assessments, vulnerability assessments, malware analysis, and incident response are among a few of the services. Before I go on and start into that, I guess I should just confirm that you can A, hear me, and B, see the slides, and third priority is see me. Is that all good? Yeah, okay, great. All right, next slide, Marie. Number 3, yeah, perfect. So what is the Cyber Center? Well, we are a business line of CSE, and CSE is a federal department, stands for Communications Security Establishment. Our headquarters is the building on the left there. It's in Ottawa, and it's on Ogilvie Road, and it's conveniently located right beside CCCS. So if you're familiar with where CCCS is, our new building here, which is probably about 5 years old now, is right beside CCCS. We have a new building, which is the Cyber Center on the right. And unfortunately, we were just about to move in to that building when the pandemic hit. So we haven't actually been in that building yet, but it looks lovely from the outside. And so what's of interest are the other bubbles at the bottom, basically. So you can see the red bubble, that is CSE's IT security team that's existed for over 70 years. So CSE has a very long history in supporting IT security in the Government of Canada. About 18 months ago, we amalgamated with 2 other federal departments that had a role to play in cybersecurity. And they were in the blue bubble, you can see the SOC that was part of shared services. And in the gray bubble, you see CCIRC, which was the Canadian Cyber Incident Response Center, which was part of public safety. So about 18 months ago, the roles and responsibilities of those 3 teams, including the staff, all came together under one roof and merged into CSE and became the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, as we all call it, the Cyber Center. So the good news now is that there is only one place to go in the Government of Canada for the federal advice relating to cybersecurity. So now you go to Environment Canada for weather, go to Health Canada for the food guide, you come to the Cyber Center for cybersecurity advice and guidance. I'll speak more to our products and services a little bit later, but I did want to just say what are we not? The Cyber Center is not a regulator in any sense. We're also not law enforcement. However, we do work really closely with our CMP. And we're also not a newsroom. So we don't share names of organizations or issues that companies have that we are working with and that report cyber incidents to us. So I think those are three really important takeaways as to what we are not. If you go to the next slide, Marie. So I mentioned that we have over 70 years experience working in cybersecurity and providing IT security support for federal organizations. So I guess the question comes to mind, why now? Why are some of you just now hearing about the Cyber Center as opposed to years ago? And the answer is simply that until August of 2019, we only had a mandate under the National Defense Act to provide cybersecurity advice and guidance to federal entities. And so in the summer of 2019, a new CSE Act was passed in Parliament, which finally, for the first time, allowed us to reach out into critical infrastructure sectors, such as the academic sector, and provide advice and guidance and services, which is really exciting. And so we already have a number of academic institutions that we're partnering with across the country, some of the provincial RANs, as well as associations and service providers. But we're really excited going forward this year to be able to, as I mentioned, partner with many more of you. If you go to the next slide, Marie, thank you. So these are the critical infrastructure sectors that we can now support. There are 16 of them. At the top is the original one. You'll see in the blue circle there, it's the federal government. All the other ones have been added since August of 2019. And the academic sector is at the bottom there. But we're essentially working with these 16 critical infrastructure sectors. It includes transportation, energy, finance, water, health is a big one these days. And so it's busy times, as you can imagine. Next slide, Marie. So who do we serve? Well, I already mentioned that we serve all of our government departments and provide their cybersecurity support. We are also now working with you and our external partners. We do support law enforcement, so we work closely with the RCMP, and we have an additional mandate to now support all of Canadians and their cybersecurity needs. So we've got a fairly extensive and massive mandate. If you go to the next slide, Marie. Essentially, this is our three-pillar mission, which states that we want to be able to protect and safeguard Canadian infrastructure and data. We want to ensure that we're informing Canadians and Canadian organizations of the cyber threats that exist and provide advice and guidance. And the third one is to empower others to have the ability to secure their own systems through collaborations and partnerships, such as the one that we have with Canary, which is fantastic. So next slide. By the way, these slides will be provided, I guess, at the end of the presentation to everybody that's participating. And this particular one has the link at the top. The title is a link to our recent National Cyber Threat Assessment of 2020. The previous one was done in 2018. So this is a 2-year update. It's a really interesting and quick read. I was actually personally surprised by how interesting it was and how easy to read it was. So I do encourage all of you, if you haven't yet, to have a look at that. 3 of the key judgments that came out of that threat assessment, obviously not a big surprise to this community, but it's worth going over. And that is the number of cyber attacks is increasing and becoming more sophisticated. Cybercrime and ransomware will continue to target our critical infrastructure sectors. And interestingly, that state-sponsored programs, and they were named in this report, from China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, they pose the greatest strategic threats to Canada as they're conducting espionage against our businesses, specifically academia, to steal the very valuable Canadian intellectual property. So I think that's a very key one for this audience, is to know that, you know, we are seeing it daily from our aperture at the Cyber Center that these threat actors are keenly interested in academic institutions, primarily right now for obviously IP related to vaccine and treatment development and R&D. So again, please have a look at that threat assessment. It's super interesting. Before I go on and talk about our services, I have, I think, 3 slides, which are some statistics. And I just wanted to go over some of these because they're interesting, and statistics are always cool. And they remind us about the need to continuously improve our cyber posture. So the data shown in the next 3 slides comes from our friends at CIRA. And they have a CIRA fact book for 2020 that they released online. And it's interesting for us because obviously the data is all Canadian. What you see on the right here is the most popular choice for new cyber protections, specifically in response to the pandemic. And you'll see that there are new policies. About 59% who responded to the survey said that they adopted some new cyber policies. And also the other big one here is device protections for remote workers. The graph on the left was basically, the question was, which of the following additional kinds of cybersecurity layers is your organization deploying to respond to increased global cyber threats? Almost 60% are deploying VPNs this year, which is good. Another half, so about 50%, are deploying DNS firewalls in response to the increased cyber threats, such as the CIRA D-Zone DNS firewall, which thankfully, as you just heard, is part of Canary's Cybersecurity Initiatives program. So that's super great. And then the third one there, about 46% are deploying password managers. So this is all good news. But we as a community obviously still have a lot of work to do to get those numbers higher. But also if you start looking at those elements that ranked 4th and 5th, for example, there are less than 40% who were surveyed that are actually doing online cybersecurity training with their staff, including running internal phishing campaigns. So this is something, you know, to be aware of, and certainly areas that Cyber Center is more than happy to work with individual institutions to help improve their cyber postures. If you go to the next slide, Marie, this is a fun one, or not fun, but interesting, scary fun. In the past year, 8 out of 10 organizations reported that they faced at least one cyber attack, with 21% of those saying that they faced more than 10 attacks in the past year. So the threat actors, obviously, they're out there and no one is immune to them. The final stat that I want to show you, this one is the one that's most troubling to me. And it's just explained so simply with these happy faces. So this is how many organizations surveyed have an active patching policy. And the red smiles are those that said yes, so about half. The purple frowns are those organizations that said they don't have a patching policy. And the black ones are the organizations that said they didn't want to answer. And the gray are people that didn't know. So we do have, I think, a lot of work to do across the country when it comes to ensuring that we at least are upgrading our systems and applying the necessary patches when they come out, which is a good segue to our services. So Marie, I've lost the deck in front of me. But Kevin, can you give me a thumbs up if you still see the deck? No. So I think Marie dropped off. This is all great. I will start talking about our services, and hopefully she will be back online in a second. Yeah, she just lost her VPN. Oh, you guys are displaying it. How wonderful. Okay, so I'm on slide 12, which is the blue background. If you go one more, whoever's displaying the slides. One more down. There we go. Oh, that's French. Perfect. We can do it in French too. No service. So I'm going to talk about 5 different types of services. The first one is our community call. Marie just said she's back. The second one is the cybersecurity assessment tool. The third one is some training and awareness. The fourth is some of our threat notifications. And the fifth are some of our tailored defense tools. So I'll go to, I guess I'm on slide 13 now, which is one of our first services that we wanted to talk about, which is our academic sector community calls. Kevin, Marie just texted me. She's trying to share her screen, but she can't because I think you are.
I'm not sharing the screen, but potentially somebody else here is. Yeah.
All right, I'll let Marie give it a try, or maybe you can text her while I'm talking. At least there's no screaming 5-year-olds behind me, which just add a lot of joy. Okay, so our academic sector community call. Really excited to mention that we are launching our community calls for the academic sector next week, starting February 2nd. I suspect many of you have already received this invitation in your Outlook, but if you haven't, please do get in touch with Marie. Her email is on the slide here and it's peppered throughout the deck. So what are these community calls? These are bi-weekly calls that we will have for 1/2 hour each. They will run from 11:30 to 12 o'clock. And the first 15 minutes of these calls, we have somebody from our incident response team that comes onto the calls and briefs the team as to what the cyber incidents are that week that we've seen at the Cyber Center related to the academic sector. So always very interesting and a really good way to stay on top of what we're seeing from our aperture in terms of threats to the academic sector. And also, we obviously have a lot of interesting conversations around topics that are relevant and timely. So for example, there was a lot of talk recently about solar winds on some of the other community calls, as you can imagine. And I suspect we'll have a lot of talk about Apple in the upcoming weeks. So those are the first 15 minutes. The second 15 minutes, what we do is we bring in a subject matter expert from inside the Cyber Center to talk very briefly, obviously just 10 to 15 minutes, on a topic of interest to the community. So it could be anything from cybersecurity and how to select a cloud service provider. It could be ransomware and specific ransomware and who the threat actors are and some of their new techniques and tactics that they're using. It could be how to run internal phishing campaigns. We've done that one before. Anything that's of interest to the community. If there's a group that lets us know that they're on the road to implement Dmarc, we have brought in our Dmarc experts to talk about SPF, DKIM, and Dmarc. And so it really is what's topical and what's of interest to the community. So these are held every 2 weeks. They're open to all our IT security professionals from the academic sector, and we would be really thrilled to host you on these calls. So if you haven't yet already gotten the recurring meeting invite from Marie, please just send her a quick note and she will definitely add you to the list. Just a note that these calls, we also announce during these calls any special sessions or additional webinars or workshops that we'll be hosting in the upcoming weeks. So for example, very recently, we had a request from the health sector to talk about Office 365 security and securing O365. So we had that just recently. So that is, if that's something that would be similar interest to this community, we could certainly do another session for that. If you can't attend any of the bi-weekly events, no problem, because Marie will be sending the decks out regardless. And so you'll have the information that we're going to be covering. So that's the community calls. If we go on to the second service, which is now, I'm on slide 14. I don't know who's changing the slides. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So what is this? This is called the Canadian Cybersecurity Tool, or CCST. As we're probably all aware, There are a lot of cybersecurity assessments in the assessment ecosystem. And so why develop a new tool? Well, back at the beginning of the pandemic, we were requested to start working with the health sector. And up until the pandemic, we hadn't been working with the health sector. So we actually had no idea what the cyber posture was across the country when it came to health organizations. But public safety, as you may or may not know, they have a tool, again, free for all public and private organizations. It's called the CCRR, which stands for Canadian Cyber Resiliency Review. And what they do is they send assessors on site for a day or two to do a really formal deep dive assessment into the organization's cyber posture. And about a month later, you would get a very detailed report from them indicating what they found, where your gaps are, and suggesting some initiatives that you could undertake to improve your cyber posture. It's a fantastic program. As I mentioned, it's free, but the problem we had at the time is that we weren't going on site. Nobody was going on site, obviously. And we didn't have 1 to 2 days per organization to get that kind of information, plus wait 30 days-ish for the report. So we worked with public safety to develop this tool. It is a quick, easy, online self-assessment of your cyber posture. It's based on the CCRR, the Resiliency Review. That's actually based on the US CRR for that matter, but it covers the same domains as the CCRR. It's just that it does it in 50 questions. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes to complete. And it's really great for all levels of cyber posture, whether you're new to the game or whether you've been doing this for a long, long time. There's still a lot of value in it, and I'll explain why in a second when I go to the next slide. Just a quick comment here that when you go to the splash page, you'll see the privacy requirements there. Effectively, we see only the raw data. We don't see anyone's reports. So if you were to do this and you did want some additional support from Cyber Center based on your reports, you would have to contact us directly. But the reports come the following day. And in the reports, you have tailored guidance based on your answers to our specific documentation and areas in our documentation that would help support you raise your cyber posture. The other interesting thing that it does, Marie, if you go to the next page, is it provides you with graphs and comparables of how you're doing with respect to your peers in the sector. So the tool evaluates programmatic and technical resiliency. So this slide shows the programmatic resiliency. So you can see on the left-hand side, these are the 6 color-coded domains that we assess. So things like asset and controls management, vulnerability and incident management, service continuity, risk management, that kind of thing. On the right is what you would see in your report. So the blue lines is how you scored, and the red line is how your peers scored. So this particular graph I noticed is the technical resiliency, not programmatic. So you would get a graph for programmatic resiliency, and then you would also get a graph for technical resiliency. The technical resiliency is based on our documentation on baseline controls for small, medium organizations. And it assesses things like how far along you are in the implementation of MFA, or providing backups and encryption, or access controls. Those are the kinds of things that we assess through these 15 questions on technical resiliency. So like I said, it's quite valuable. It's quick. When it comes to the assessment ecosystem, it's not really a deep dive at all, but it is super quick to give you insight into how you're doing, where your biggest gaps are, and how you're doing with respect to your peers. You can also redo it really, really easily in 6 or 12 months or 18 months from now and see how your scores have improved, we hope, over time. The other thing for us is the data that we get from this is really crucial in how we are able to support the academic sector. First of all, if we have data to drive when we go back to do our business planning in terms of what the priorities should be to develop new services to support the sector, it helps us so much in doing the business planning. So if we have data that supports the fact that the academic sector requires new service X, then we're a lot more likely to be able to find the resources to pull those new services together. So I do encourage everyone, all organizations, to have a look at this tool. If you are interested, again, Marie Bélanger will provide you with the username and access to it. If you have any other questions and want to have a further on conversation with us about the tool and how it compares to any of the other ones in this ecosystem, we're more than happy to have that conversation. Next slide, Marie. I think it's Marie. Okay, so this is very quick. It's not our team that does training awareness, but it was worthwhile to put it up on the slide here to say that we do have a learning hub, and traditionally their role was to provide cybersecurity training and awareness to Government of Canada. But since the pandemic, things have been changing, and they are offering some interesting courses that are accessible to our critical infrastructure partners. Maybe not of interest to our IT security program staff per se, but you may want to take this and use it within your organizations and your institutions. So there are 3 there that are sort of an intro level to cybersecurity. The last 2 I found really interesting on online exposure and home and telework security. They are 3 hours each, so they're a bit long, but they are quite hands-on and allow you to do add some of the controls as you're going through those workshops. There's a new one that was just launched this week called Discovering Cybersecurity. And it's an online e-learning course. It takes about 30 to 60 minutes, very basic, very cybersecurity 101. And then there's 5 new live mini sessions that they're offering. They're kind of like lunch and learns. They're 90 minutes. You can either sign up as individuals or you can request that they give it to your entire organization. And you can see the topics there. There's some interesting ones with respect to teleworking, but also IoT, which is always of interest to many of us. So if you go to the next slide, this is sort of where our actual products come in that I wanted to talk to you about. And I won't take too long going through this because I know many of you are already in receipt of some of these. But I do find that sometimes there is some confusion between what services Cyber Center can offer, what services you could get from CanSoc, from Canary, from your provincial RANs. So hopefully going through this, I'll be able to demystify that a little bit, but I'll certainly point out which of these services are only coming from Cyber Center as opposed to being available from some of your other partners. So if you go to the next slide on alerts, thank you. I noticed it's not Marie changing them. So whoever's changing the slides, thank you. So these are our alerts. Alerts are simply an indication of a new vulnerability. Vulnerability in a product, a software, application, framework, control system. And these alerts are TLP white. So they're actually, as you see on the right-hand side, they're on our external website. But if you signed up for the service to receive them, you would get them emailed to you directly into your inbox. They can be emailed to you, to many of you in an organization, or to a security disk list maybe in your organization. But being TLP white means that they are open to the world to see them. And once you get them, you're free to share them with whoever you want. So those are our alerts. The next slide are our flashes. And you can see here, if you go to slide, yeah, thank you. These are not available on our external website. They are only available through emails that we would send to you once you've signed up for the service. So what are cyber flashes? They're similar to alerts, but they come with a time sensitivity to them. It's basically, we now know of a threat actor that's actively exploiting a vulnerability. So if you were to ever get a flash, the idea is please apply those mitigation steps right away. And they usually come out at 4 o'clock on a Friday, of course. But they come with mitigation, and they come with indicators of compromise as well attached to them that you can utilize in your defensive products if you are able to. And the third one in this list, next slide, are our weekly technical reports. These ones are really interesting. They come out every Friday. And what they are is a consolidation of all the cyber incidents that we've seen at the Cyber Center in all 16 critical infrastructure sectors that week. Obviously, the Government of Canada Federal Departments section is the largest, but you can always just scroll through and have a look at what we've seen in the academic sector, or have a look at it all. They also come with a CSV file that would indicate or provide all the IOCs from that week. Again, not available on our external website, only available if you sign up through the service, and it would get emailed out to you. So to access those three, the alerts, the flashes, and the weekly technical reports, just send a note to Marie. She will get you the onboarding forms, where it's 2 forms. One you fill out with your POC information and which services you want, you tick them off. And the second form is our terms and conditions. So we would be happy to provide any of those to you. The last sort of chunk, or second to last, I guess, would be our tailored cyber defense tools. Because as you notice, those 3 that I just spoke about are very generic, and they're not tailored to your organization. Thank you. If you go to the next slide, 22, I think, yeah. This one is our Nctns notifications, and Nctns stands for National Cyber Threat Notification System. And it's a service where we combine data from various third-party intelligence feeds that we get because we are the national CERT. And we notify you if we detect signs of compromise and vulnerable services on the external IP space that you've given us. So this particular service, I believe, is a service that is only provided by Cyber Center at this time. And it is, it's really, it's a great service to make sure that you know who's trying to knock on your door. And because we are the national CERT and we do get these additional third-party feeds, we are able to fairly quickly provide you emailed notifications that there are potential signs of compromise on the external facing IP range that you've given us. So if you are interested in this, it's part of the same form that I just spoke about. It's just another item that you would tick off. And the additional info we need at this point would be the IP range, or ranges, I guess, that you would be interested in us covering. The last one that I will mention, if you go to the next slide, is Aventail. This is our real-time IOC threat feed. So if you are already participating in the CANSOC threat feed via, I guess, directly from CANSOC or through Canary's new Cyber Initiatives program, then the great news is that you are already receiving Aventail because it's included in the CANSOC threat feed. If you are not already receiving those services, and or it will be some time before you will be, you are more than welcome to sign up directly for Aventail and get our threat feed. We can provide it out in STIX TAXI or MISP formats. And I guess it's kind of interesting to know how it works and where we get the IOCs from. So I'll spend a couple of minutes doing that. Basically, we have a knowledge base at CSE on the high side. And that knowledge base is populated with IOCs that come from whenever critical infrastructure sectors report cyber incidents to us, which is why it's very important that you do report cyber incidents if you can to the Cyber Center. So we get a lot of IOCs from organizations reporting to us. We get a lot of IOCs from the sensors that we have across all federal government departments. And those sensors feed IOCs, millions of sensors feeding IOCs to us on the high side every day. We also have IOCs being fed from our high side and our signals intelligence and the work that they're doing on the high side and the secret sauce that they have in gathering IOCs. And similarly with our Five Eye partners in the US, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand, they share as well what they're seeing. So it is a fairly beefy threat feed, if you will. To access this, again, just send Marie an email. There's a non-disclosure agreement that needs to be signed between your organization and us, but otherwise it's super simple for us to connect you with threat feed. Obviously, probably not applicable to every organization and institution on the line here, but if you do need some support or help in a selection of a SIM or a SOAR or any other form of cyber defense tools in order to be able to acquire a threat feed, we're happy to support. So I just have another couple little slides here. If you go to the next one and following the next one, yeah, malware intake. One of the other services that we provide is malware analysis. So if you do think that you have any malwares and you want to submit a binary, you can to that red email address there, malware@ccirc.ca. And the turnaround is usually about 3 days. Our analysts will have a look at the malware and get back to you. Any other cyber incident should be reported to cyberincident@cyber.gc.ca, the other email address in black on the right. Even if you don't need support and help or containment for an incident, it's always super useful for us to hear from you if you are experiencing any kind of phishing or DDoS or whatnot, because that's where we also can pull some of our IOCs. So always encourage you to reach out to Cyber Center as well as your local law enforcement if it's cybercrime related. The next slide is scorecards. So I mentioned the Nctns, which was where we take third-party threat feeds and we compare them to what we're seeing across your external IP space. So the scorecards are the monthly roll-up of that Nctns data. It gives you a monthly assessment of the vulnerable services, the malware, how you compare to your peers in that sector. It's a really interesting full PDF with lots of colorful graphs, as you see. Similar in a way to BitSight and security scorecards. However, obviously we have the additional availability to the feeds that we're getting because we're the national cert. I don't believe BitSight or security scorecards do comparables with peers, and you can set that up with this if you want, and of course ours are free. So I do encourage you, if you're interested in this product, again, just reach out to us and we'll go through the entire product. Probably take about 30 minutes, and then you can sort of assess and determine whether it's something that your organization can benefit from. It's always nice to have graphs to go to execs to potentially indicate why you need more IT security funding and resourcing. If you go to the next slide, we have a number of publications. The website is in red, cyber.gc.ca. These are just a very small amount of those publications, but some that I thought would be useful when it comes to our threat assessments, as well as implementing some cybersecurity training and awareness sessions. So you can have a look at those. If you have questions about any of them, we're happy to answer. Or if you have a need for additional publications on other topics that you cannot find on our website, again, we're always happy to hear from you and to get our experts' heads together so that we can pull together some additional publications that are meaningful to our community. So the second last slide, if you go to what's upcoming, oh no, you don't have that. Okay, so I just threw together today an upcoming slide, which I will only speak to. It's probably good that it's not written down because then I don't promise anything. But what we have right now is a tool called Assembly Line. It is a malware detection and analysis tool developed by Cyber Center that you can currently download from BitSight onto your organization's infrastructure. It basically, you submit a chunk of a file and it does some analytics on it and it comes back with a value of malwareness that file had. There is an online version that we've been using for our federal departments for some time. We're doing a pilot right now of a different version to use with our critical infrastructure sectors. It will be called malware.ca. And so what you can look for towards the spring is probably having that online version of malware.ca where you can submit a file and it is actually shared with us as well at that time. We are in the development of 3 new templates. So coming up in the very near future, we will be releasing a template for cyber plans, a template for cyber policies, and a template for incident response plans. We'll be talking a lot about them also and sending them out through the academic sector community calls, which are starting next week, as I mentioned. So if you are tagging into those calls, you'll hear all about some of those new products. And the last one that's coming up I wanted to mention is Dmarc. So right now, federal government has a requirement to implement Dmarc across all departments. And so we are supporting that from a Cyber Center perspective. But coming very soon, we will have the resourcing and a portal set up so that we can support the implementation of SPF, DKIM, Dmarc for our critical infrastructure partners. For now, if you do have any questions on Dmarc, we're happy to set you up with our Dmarc team, and they can certainly assist you in the implementation of it. And with that, you can go to the last slide. Sometimes people wonder, who do we go to for what? Cyber Center for reporting cyber incidents, Cyber Tip for reporting any exploitation, your local police and RCMP if you have cybercrime, and of course there's the Anti-Fraud Center for reporting any fraud. And how do you do that? The next slide, the last slide, is the links are there on how you reach out to all of those individuals. So that was a lot of talking. I appreciate your attention and happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Great presentation. If you do have any questions, you can post them to the Q&A forum. We're going to be going there now to answer the questions. So even the questions that have been answered throughout the webinar, I will read out loud and I will read the answers as well. So we'll start with the ones that are still open. So from Jessica, are institutions and organizations encouraged to do the self-assessment against the CCCS 2020 assessment list?
I don't know what the 2020 assessment list is. I don't know what she's referring to there. Maybe she can type that in later, but we are encouraging organizations and institutions to do the CCST, which is the Canadian Cyber Security Tool. It benefits all of us. It will help us know where the gaps are in the academic sector. It'll help you know where your gaps are, and it will provide you with within a day some tailored advice and guidance that you can or can't share with us at your leisure. But it also helps to take that information and then roll it into a cyber plan if you don't already have one.
Great. Next question is from Patrick. Are any/all of the cyber alerts available as a subscription API for SIM tool ingestion?
Are all the cyber alerts available as a subscription for SIM tool ingestion? No, they are not. The cyber flashes come with IOCs, usually as a separate file. I think attached at the end, a CSV file. The weekly technical reports definitely come with a file as well, CSV file, but currently not for direct ingestion into your SIM.
Okay. Did you have anything to add there?
No, I was just going to say that realistically, if we're not seeing it coming off the sensors from our federal departments, that's not in the Aventail feed. So if you're getting it in a different way from us, it's typically not in the Aventail feed.
Okay, perfect. Jessica responded, and I believe you answered her question, so that's great.
Okay.
From Patrick again, good malware detects that is being analyzed and turns itself off. Does your assembly line handle this?
That it is being analyzed. Oh, that's a great question. I'm going to take that back to our assembly line team. And how do I get the answer back to you? Just to you, Kevin?
We can probably hook you guys up once this is over.
Okay, great. Yeah, I don't know where Patrick is what institution he's from.
Okay, so we'll make note of that, and we'll make sure that we handle that information on the back end once we're done. He also says, I also saw a sector talk where malware turned itself off as it detected it was running on a VM container. So that would probably be part of that same answer. So
yeah.
So Patrick, the answer to your question is we'll get back to you. Warren asks, given the CCCS National Cyber Threat Assessment 2020 regarding state-sponsored espionage, what impact might these findings have, if any, on the institution's relationship with international students from those countries? Great question.
It is a great question. And I think that, not to pass the buck, but this is definitely an area that CCCS is more attuned at answering and talking about those concerns. We did release a publication before September when everyone went back to virtual learning that was sort of a, we can't as a federal department tell you not to use certain things or to use certain products or vendors, but it was a sort of read between the lines specifically for researchers and academic institutions regarding how to deal with knowing that you had international students connecting to your classrooms. So if that's of interest, I can forward the link to that specific publication, Kevin, and you can send it out to the group. If you are interested, I know that we've done a number of co-briefings with CCCS around this particular topic. If you are interested in having that sort of for your organization, we can certainly work with you and get on the line and have a meeting with CCCS and ourselves.
Great. And I think the last question that was answered already, but I'll read it out loud, was around the contact information for Marie. We did answer that directly, rather than reading out her email address here. When we send around the deck and the information to the people who were part of this webinar, if it's okay with you, Lindsay, and with Marie, maybe we'll include her email in that message. That way, you know, for all of the great services that you told us we could just reach out to her for. That way, everyone's got her contact information and knows how to get a hold of her.
Poor Marie. That's all I have to say. It's poor Marie.
Gonna get bombarded with emails.
Yeah, you can reach out to either one of us. We are a mighty team of two looking after the academic sector these days. So please feel free to reach both of us or either one of us, and we will get back to you. And really, thank you everyone for logging in today, and to Canary for giving us this opportunity to reach out to the broader Canadian network of academic institutions.
Just one more quick question by Jonathan. He was asking if PowerPoint slides will be made available for download. We will be sending a copy in English and French out to all of the people who are part of this. So yes, you absolutely will be able to receive these. Thank you so much, Marie. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you. I know we had a few little challenges at the beginning, but it was really informative, and we really appreciate you being our first ever webinar for the cybersecurity program. For the rest of you, we will be doing these every month. Our next one, I believe, is February 25th. So please watch for ways to be able to sign up. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
please don't forget to fill out the survey. Thank you.
And say that it was amazing.
Absolutely.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks again for all your patience.
Bye, guys.